He's not fit to lead. Sarah Thompson's voice thunders, silencing the crowd at Northwood Academy's annual gala in London. The air crackles as Marcus, her striking white husband, stands firm, shielding their son, Leo, from a prejudice that cuts deeper than words. A father's love, a CEO's resolve, can they shatter the school's facade of privilege? Where are you watching from? Your city, your time zone, drop it in the comments below. What do you think happens when truth collides with bias? Will justice prevail, or will the system prevail? Subscribe now to catch our latest stories of courage and change, and don't miss the twist that'll leave you speechless. Will Marcus and Leo rise above the scorn? Can one family redefine a school's soul? Hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts, and stay with us to find out. The late June sun cast long shadows over Northwood Academy, an elite London private school, as its annual summer gala pulsed with subdued elegance. Marcus Thompson stepped onto the manicured lawns, his fair skin a stark contrast to the deep ebony suit he wore, tailored with an almost defiant simplicity. His light brown hair, carefully styled, framed a face so strikingly handsome it seemed to challenge the hushed world around him. He wore a crisp white shirt, no tie, and scuffed, limited edition designer sneakers, a quiet rebellion against the assumed dress code of polished brogues. Today, he was here for his 7-year-old son, Leo, whose small hand clung tightly to his. Marcus's smile radiated warmth, a beacon of pride, but beneath it lay a truth he hadn't yet glimpsed: Leo's silent dread. Leo, his light brown skin a delicate blend of his father's fairness and his mother's rich hue, walked with a hesitant step. His small dreadlocks, meticulously retwisted by Sarah's careful hands that morning, bounced with each movement, a shield of love against the evening ahead. His bright eyes, inherited from his mother, Sarah Thompson, flickered with unease, scanning the sophisticated chaos of the gala. Northwood was no ordinary school. It was a bastion of prestige, its historic buildings and gleaming facilities, a magnet for London's wealthiest families. Marcus and Sarah had fought to secure Leo's place here, drawn to its promise of rigorous academics and boundless opportunity. They believed it was a launchpad for their son's dreams. But Leo's heart carried a secret heavier than his blue team rosette. This school, with its polished halls, was a battlefield where his peers' cruel whispers targeted his hair, his skin, his very existence. The gala buzzed with energy. String quartet music mingled with the clink of champagne glasses. The scent of canapes and expensive perfume hung in the air. Parents clustered, snapping photos with sleek phones. Marcus adjusted Leo's rosette, his fingers lingering, a tether to his son's courage. "You're going to have a great time, buddy," he said, his voice a warm anchor, his smile bright despite the faint ache in his chest. Leo nodded, but his gaze snagged on a group of boys nearby, their giggles sharp as shards of glass. "They're watching, Dad," he whispered, his voice a fragile thread. Marcus's heart skipped, but he brushed it off, mistaking Leo's fear for nerves. As they crossed the lawn, Marcus's worn sneakers sank into the impossibly green turf, each step a quiet defiance against the sea of polished faces. Heads turned, their glances fleeting but barbed, as if his presence unraveled an unspoken code. A woman in a pristine silk gown, her blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, leaned toward her friend, her voice carrying, "He looks more like a hired caterer than a parent." The words sliced through the warm air, sharp and deliberate. Marcus's cheeks burned, a sting he'd known in high-stakes boardrooms, now piercing deeper in his son's world. He wasn't their caricature, misplaced, out of depth. He was the CEO of an innovative AI firm whose algorithms powered multinational supply chains, but his simple attire, his look, wove a false narrative that the crowd eagerly embraced. Leo's grip tightened, his small fingers trembling. Marcus knelt, his hair falling softly, his eyes meeting his son's. "Focus on the fun, buddy," he said, his voice forced calm. "You're stronger than their stares." But the weight of those stares pressed heavier, a rising tide of prejudice Marcus knew too well. He wasn't just a father here. He was a challenge to their order, his family's mixed heritage, a mirror they refused to face. Leo deserved this school, its opportunities, its promise, and Marcus deserved to stand as his father, unbowed, unafraid. As they reached the mini-golf station, a group of boys, led by Gareth Finch, the headmaster's son, stopped inches from Leo. "Funny hair," Gareth sneered, his voice loud enough to draw snickers. Leo flinched, his hand flying to his dreadlocks, his eyes welling as he fought to hide them. The gala seemed to tilt, the music fading to a distant hum. Marcus stepped forward, pulling Leo behind him, his voice low but firm. "Don't touch my son." Gareth's smirk widened, unfazed. Then, Headmaster Finch himself appeared, his suit impeccable, his smile a practiced mask. Now, Marcus," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "It's just kids being kids. You're making a scene. Perhaps your boy is too sensitive for Northwood's robust environment." The words were a venomous dart, framing Leo's pain as weakness, Marcus's defense as overreaction, and their family as outsiders in Northwood's pristine bubble. Marcus's breath caught, the injustice sinking its claws deeper. Leo pressed closer, his small voice trembling. "Dad, I told you I didn't want you here." The confession was a knife to Marcus's heart, slicing through his enthusiasm to reveal the truth Leo had hidden. This school, with its promises of opportunity, was a crucible of cruelty for his son. The taunts, the exclusion, the daily torment Leo endured. Marcus saw it all in his son's eyes, wide with a pain no 7-year-old should carry. Marcus's resolve hardened. He wouldn't leave. Leo deserved a father who fought, who stood unbowed against this tide of prejudice. "This isn't teasing," he said, his voice rising, clear and unyielding, addressing the headmaster directly. "Your son hurt mine, and you're defending it." "That's not how this works." The crowd hushed. Headmaster Finch's smile tightened, his authority challenged, but he leaned back, unmoved. "Mr. Thompson," he began, his voice clipped. "Northwood has traditions. Perhaps your family doesn't align with our long-standing culture. This is a private event. You can either calm down and rejoin, or I'll have to ask you to leave." The words were a guillotine, their bureaucratic righteousness cutting deep. Marcus's pulse raced, his mind screaming to protect Leo, to tear through this facade of privilege. "Culture?" he repeated, his voice ablaze. "You mean a culture that lets my son be hurt, that judges us before knowing us? That's not a standard, it's a failure." He knew this wasn't just about a pulled dreadlock. It was about Leo's right to exist here, to be seen beyond his hair, beyond his skin. The gala grounds seemed to close in. The string quartet was a distant echo. Marcus's fingers curled into fists, his resolve a flame that refused to flicker. He reached for his phone, his voice steady, despite the storm within. "Sarah," he said, his call a beacon in the gathering dark. "Come to the school now. Leo needs you." Beyond the headmaster's study window, a sleek, armored Rolls-Royce Cullinan, tinted windows gleaming like polished obsidian, glided silently into the academy's grand drive. Heads turned outside, the crowd's chatter faltering as parents and staff paused, drawn to the vehicle's understated power and the 2 security personnel who emerged, scanning the perimeter. A gasp rippled through the onlookers. Marcus's heart steadied, a spark of hope igniting. Sarah was here. The study door swung open, and Sarah Thompson stepped in, her presence a thunderclap in the charged silence. At 35, her deep ebony skin and sharp, intelligent eyes contrasted with Leo's warm tones, but her love for her family burned fiercely. Her simple yet immaculately tailored dress and single understated diamond necklace whispered of an influence beyond the school's comprehension. She'd left a high-level meeting at the Home Office, where she was advising on national security, driven by Marcus's urgent call. Leo's face lit up, his dreadlocks bouncing as he broke free. "Mum," he cried, hurtling into her arms. Sarah knelt, scooping him into a hug, her smile a fleeting oasis before her eyes found Marcus's, his expression strained. He told her everything, the scorn, the bullying, the headmaster's dismissal. Sarah sat Leo down, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. As she crossed to Marcus, her touch on his back was a silent vow of shared battles. "What's going on, my love?" she asked, her voice soft but laced with steel, a warning the room couldn't miss. Marcus's gaze held hers, his resolve unshaken. "They don't think we belong," he said, each word a quiet indictment. "Leo's being bullied, and they're blaming us for speaking up." Sarah's jaw tightened, her intelligent eyes sweeping the room, taking in Headmaster Finch's rigid posture, his blazer a flimsy shield against her authority. The crowd outside, visible through the window, pressed closer, their whispers a restless hum, as they sensed a monumental shift in the air. "I'm Sarah Thompson, Leo's mother," she said, her tone even but unyielding, addressing Headmaster Finch directly. "Why is my husband being treated like an intruder? Why is my son a target for his hair and skin?" Headmaster Finch blinked, his composure cracking, his hands clutching his desk as if to anchor his faltering control. "Mrs. Thompson," he began, his voice noticeably smoother, "this is a misunderstanding. We're simply ensuring the gala runs smoothly. Your husband's concerns are noted." Sarah's eyes narrowed, cutting through his veneer like a blade. "Noted," she repeated, her voice rising just enough to carry. "You mean his standing up for our son against bullying? You mean your culture that singles out my family while others go unquestioned?" The room stilled, the weight of her words a challenge that shrank the headmaster's authority to a hollow shell. Outside, parents exchanged glances, some avoiding her gaze, their complicity exposed. Gareth's mother, a woman who'd been lurking near the door, stepped forward, her tone syrupy. "It's about community, Mrs. Thompson," she said, her smile brittle. "We're protective of our traditions." Sarah's gaze locked on hers, unflinching. "Community?" she said, her voice a scalpel. "You've targeted my family for being multiracial and let our son be mocked. What kind of community is that?" Her words hung heavy, silencing the murmurs beyond the door. Leo pressed closer to Marcus, his small frame steadied by his parents' unity. Sarah turned back to Headmaster Finch, her presence a quiet storm. "You've failed to protect my son," she said, her voice steady but searing. "You've dismissed my husband's rightful anger as a disruption. You're not fit to lead this institution." Headmaster Finch's face drained of color, his lips parting but no words coming. The crowd outside fell silent, the string quartet a distant pulse. Marcus felt a surge of pride, not for Sarah's status but for her heart, the woman who saw their family's worth when others refused. He squeezed Leo's hand, his voice soft but firm. "We're here for our son like any of you," he said, addressing the parents now crowding the doorway. "Why is that a threat?" The question lingered, a mirror to their prejudice. A well-respected governor of Northwood Academy, a stern-faced woman known for her philanthropy, stepped forward from the silent crowd. "Headmaster Finch," she announced, her voice resonating with quiet authority. "I think we've heard enough. This behavior is unacceptable and entirely unrepresentative of Northwood's stated values. Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson, I am deeply ashamed of what your family has endured here today." She turned to the crowd, her gaze sweeping across them. "This gala is over." Effective immediately, Headmaster Finch's tenure is under review by the full Board of Governors, and I, for one, will be voting for a change in leadership." A murmur of shock rippled through the crowd, some faces pale with surprise, others nodding in silent, relieved agreement. Just then, Gareth Finch, usually emboldened by his father, broke free from his mother and, surprisingly, stepped forward, tears welling in his eyes. "Dad's always telling me to be tough on the scholarship, kids," he mumbled, his voice barely audible, but carrying in the stunned silence. "He told me to make sure Leo knew his place." The headmaster's face turned ashen, his reputation crumbling before his eyes. The governor raised an eyebrow, a grim confirmation. Sarah Thompson, her voice clear and resonant, addressed the now shaken crowd and the humiliated headmaster. "Northwood Academy will implement mandatory external diversity and inclusion training for every staff member and student. A transparent system for reporting and addressing discrimination will be established. No child, no family will ever again be targeted here. This school will either live up to its promise of true excellence and inclusivity, or it will cease to be a place our family supports." Marcus stood beside her, Leo nestled between them, his fear replaced by a quiet sense of triumph. "This isn't about one incident," Marcus stated, his voice firm. "It's about dismantling systems that allow prejudice to flourish. It's about ensuring every child, every family, feels seen, valued, and safe. Your silence, your complicity, that ends now." A few parents, their faces flushed with shame, began to approach, offering tentative apologies. One father, who had earlier scoffed at Marcus's sneakers, extended a hand. I didn't see it," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry, we can do better." Others nodded, a ripple of accountability spreading through the former wall of privilege. The story was no longer just about the Thompsons. It was about the very soul of Northwood Academy and the community it claimed to serve. "This is just the beginning," Sarah concluded, looking directly into the camera. "Change takes courage, and it takes action. If you believe in a world where everyone belongs, where justice prevails over prejudice, then hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts on this story, and join our community. Because when truth collides with bias, it's up to all of us to ensure justice always prevails. Stay with us for more stories of courage, change, and how one family redefined a school's soul.